welcome to How Do You Drew?
This is a Drew Barrymore podcast brought to you by thedrewseum.com.
And sponsored by our friends at Positive Medium.
I'm Anne.
And I'm Ashley.
And I'm Joalena.
Oh, yes, we have an extra voice here.
A little surprise. Actually, there's another one.
Yeah. Hi.
Well, you got to say who you are.
Oh, I'm Mila.
Our 13-year-old resident teen is here as well.
Yeah, so Joalena, we've talked about her a few times. Old Drewbie friend from the Grapevine, so OG.
Yeah.
We got an OG Drewbie.
Yeah, this is our like power of three. We met as teenagers. Joe, you were what, 14 when we met online?
Oh, I was younger than that.
Oh my
when we
gosh.
met online,
I was 14.
like 12 when I think I first
Wow.
started talking to you guys.
Okay, that's
Yep.
weird.
Yeah.
And we have very much translated our friendship into IRL. We don't really think of ourselves as online friends anymore.
And by the way, this is our first in-person podcast.
Oh yeah, this is the first time that Anne and I are next to each other instead of through a screen. This is kind of special when it's Thanksgiving week. We are doing stuff, we're busy, and we're seeing each other.
Yep.
So this is gonna be a little different format. We're just hanging out in a park and having a conversation.
And it'll probably hear just natural outside sounds.
If you're wondering what those kids are and
Basketballs
chirping
and
birdies.
dogs.
Just close your eyes and take it in.
Yeah, and hopefully it feels
Meditate.
good. So we're going to just quickly just hop through a couple of quick things at the top. We had some really sweet comments from some people we're not as familiar with on Instagram, and we wanted to share them because it really made us feel good.
Yeah, sounds good.
We've got mail.
You've got mail.
So our first one was from Horror Lass on Instagram, and they said, "Your page makes me so GD happy. Been a Drewbie since I was 13. I'm 40 now, so this is great. Thank you."
So nice. And then we got another comment from @KitschyBeatnikT on Instagram. Your page and podcast are a godsend, which is like so short and sweet. And I was like, great, that's what we want to be.
We definitely want to be a godsend.
So thanks to you both for your sweet comments and support.
Thank you. Keep them coming.
Yes, please. So we only have one real quick what's new with Drew because she's also seems to be on like Thanksgiving break perhaps. So there's not a lot going on this week. I just wanted to say, did you see, and this is like the only thing I watched all week, did you see Brooke Shields on the Drew Barrymore
I
show?
saw a little clip
Did
where they
you
were talking about Skims.
Okay, no,
Okay.
not that one. So there was another part where they were talking about basically like interviewers when they were younger who like kind of pushed an agenda on them or pressured them.
Okay.
And Brooke was talking about an interview. She didn't say who it was, but somebody who really like kept pushing her for an answer that wasn't her answer.
Okay.
And then Drew brought up, she said she had recently rewatched her 1997 interview with Barbara Walters and said that like Barbara like was relentless about like, tell me about the drugs, tell me about the bisexuality. And like Drew was really uncomfortable.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then Brooke was like, oh, actually, I had an experience like that really uncomfortable experience with Barbara Walters, too, where she made me, like, stand up and talk about my measurements when I was 15.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, Barbara Walters kind of, that's how she got started. Baba Wawa. Baba Wawa. She kind of infamously would do that.
Yeah.
When her guests would sort of, like, be just straightforward, like, tell me about it.
Right.
I want to get this.
But I think they both felt very like, oh my gosh, back off, you know?
Like a boundary had been crossed
Yes,
a little bit.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
that's about it. I just thought that was kind of worth noting because I thought I kind of liked that they sort of called it out,
Yeah.
you know, as older women looking back on like being young in the limelight and
Yeah.
how uncomfortable that
And
could
this
be.
is unrelated, but I really like how Drew looks in that Barbara Walters interview.
Oh, I
Oh
know.
my gosh.
It's like the Jane 97.
Yeah.
Like a pink sweater.
So
Yeah.
adorable.
Yeah, so we have a fun topic today that aligns well with Joalena joining us.
Yeah.
So we're just going to kind of go through a couple of our encounters with Drew over the years. We won't go through all of them. We've been very, very lucky that we've been able to encounter her many, many times.
Yeah, I don't even know how many we're at. If you wanted to see a list, you could do that on thedrewseum.com/encounters. We do have a list. We lost all of our stories except for one.
Meh.
I know, so you can't read or see pictures on most of them except for one. But we're going to talk about basically the two, I would say the biggest ones that involved all three of us.
Yep,
Okay.
agreed.
And that's what we'll go through. Okay, so let's start with 2005. I can't even believe it was, how many years is that?
We should have done the math
Let's
before
not
we
think
started.
about that.
17 years? 17 years. How is that possible? Oh my God. So we had seen, okay.
I'm just shaking my head.
I know.
This is really good for podcast. I should do a gif of our head shaking.
I will back up and just say that we had seen Drew on The Tonight Show together, the three of us, probably a handful of times by this point, right?
That makes sense. That would make sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think you and I, Ashley and I, had gone by ourselves once,
maybe
and
twice.
then Joalena joined us a couple other times.
Yeah.
And those were always pretty brief. Like if we were encountering her, it was either like a wave or something like that. Although I had met her in 2001 at a book signing. But
yeah, this was kind of the first time that it was really us getting to sort of hang with her for a bit.
Yeah, and getting kind of an interesting access thanks to Chris Miller. So
always thanks to Chris Miller.
Chris Miller, you're the best.
Love you, Chris.
So Drew and Nancy Juvonen, had participated in a program that was happening at the Arclight Theater in Hollywood, and the program was called Hollywood's Master Storytellers. So they were showing screenings of 50 First Dates and then having Q&As with Nancy and Drew before and after, basically, is what happened. And we found out about it and had to be there.
Yep. And I don't know if we said the date, but it took place on December 6th of 2005.
Thank you.
So how do we even start this?
Well, so I guess we had somehow alerted Chris that we were coming.
Yep, via probably Friendster.
Probably, yeah. And our memories are a little hazy on this one because it was 17 years ago. Mila, this was before you were born.
Oh.
So, I mean, all I really remembered was us being in line before the event and then finding out that there had been a previous event, or maybe we knew, but there were 2 screenings.
Yeah, so there were 2 screenings. So the first one they were going to do at the end of the screening, and the second one, I believe, was at the beginning of the screening.
For the Q&A.
Something like that, yeah. So we were just waiting right outside, basically, the theater doors to the actual, where the screening was going to be held in that theater. It's kind of confusing because I'm saying like theater, but there's like the internal theater. I don't know.
Well,
it doesn't matter.
For anyone who's familiar with Arclight in Hollywood, there's like a big set of stairs, and at the top of the stairs there are a bunch of like actual theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And this event took place at one of the theaters that was upstairs at the top of the big set of stairs.
There you go.
And so we were kind of standing in line. I'm guessing we were one of the first people in line, if I had to guess.
Well, yeah, because
for the second screening.
Yeah, exactly. So we were waiting up there, and then like we said, Chris was aware that we were coming, and we just saw like a group of people. And I remember spotting Drew's Adidas jacket that she'd worn a lot, that red and white one, and be like, oh, there she is, and being so excited.
Yeah, so we spotted the 3 of them, I'm assuming.
And it
maybe
looks like security.
My guess is just how it usually would happen is we would flag down Chris Miller and then kind of like, we're here sort of situation.
Yeah,
or
so
he might have seen us.
Chris came over to us when he saw us, and he said like, hi, and gave us all hugs. And then he called Nancy over and introduced us as the huge fans, which is great. And she was super sweet. And then the Arclight staff and like the press were prepping Drew for a little photo shoot, but Chris got her attention and she pulled away from them so that she could come over to us and say hi. And she gave us all huge hugs. It was kind of a blur because we were all so excited.
Yeah.
She had to go do that photo shoot, but she kept telling us a bunch of times, I'll be right back. Like, I feel like we got told that a lot.
Yeah.
Do you remember if we were able to see her doing this shoot? Was it like...
I think it was like off to the side.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
we were just standing right there, which is
Yeah.
so funny. Okay, so after the photo shoot, she came over to us and we had some gifts for them. And we had basically, you explain it.
Okay, so at some point we decided... years before, maybe, was this one of the first ones we gave to her of a framed picture? Do you remember how many
Probably.
we'd done before? So we've given Drew a few framed pieces that include her ancestors. So basically we've done like a couple of her grandfather. I think we still actually have something we need to give her, an Ethel photograph.
Yeah, you're right.
If you're listening, Drew, pretend you didn't hear that. So we framed Drew's famous profile image of her by Erbritz next to a picture of Drew Barrymore, and also a profile image. And I had framed it, and like we put some ribbon around it, and we'll share this image. And the other thing is, I don't know why I decided to do this, but I picked up something for Nancy, and maybe I did for Chris as well, because I'm wondering. Okay, great. So I had was working at Michael's at the time, and I picked up these little notepads that were in the shapes of their first initials.
Yeah, it was really sweet.
Yeah.
So when she saw the picture frame, I wrote, back in the day, that her face went from happy, excited to about to cry, shocked, touched. And she said, oh my God, do you even understand? And we all, yeah, we know. And she said, my grandfather in our profiles, it's my favorite thing in the whole world. You know me so well. Thank you. So this is so sweet. Yeah, we nailed it. And then one of the cameramen who was standing around said, Drew, do you want a photo with your friends?
Oh my God, I remember that.
Which is so sweet.
We're like...
So he took a couple, and then Drew was really kind enough to make sure that he used our own camera so we would have the photos. Because we never did get to see the ones that this guy took.
Yeah. So those are in the ether somewhere.
I guess I don't really remember this until I read it, but I guess he was struggling taking the picture, and Drew was like, I think you need to hold the button down. But she was like talking when he took it, and so that's why there's one with her mouth kind of open, and then she's like, wait, we have to do one more. My face was like, oh. And basically all this was happening when they were supposed to be in the Q&A. So they were kind of holding up the Q&A.
And it was probably like only a few minutes, but I remember it feeling like a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how we knew that we were holding up. They might have, did you say
the
they came
staff
up?
was just saying like, we need to get you
we're
in.
waiting for you.
So they went in and kept saying, we'll be back, and being really sweet. And Chris was so nice. He realized it was going to be a while, and he came and grabbed us and pulled us in for that screening, even though we weren't ticketed for that one, which was really cool. So then after that Q&A, we went back out, and there was a huge line, but because seats were assigned, we decided, why are we going to wait in that line when we could stand off to the side?
Yep. We already felt kind of like weird VIPs.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, and then when were people asking us if we knew her? Because I remember there was this tension between us and the other people who were in the line.
That's right.
But people were asking us if we knew her, and I mean, yes and no. I don't remember
in
what
a
we
way.
said, but
kind of.
we just had somebody who had pre-vouched for us and Chris Miller. So I've said this maybe before, but I feel like every time we've been able to meet Drew, especially together, we've had this access that's based on like a previous trust.
Yeah.
So I think that us having these encounters is definitely aided by that.
Well, yeah. And we won't get into it because you weren't there for that, and this could be another story, but Joalena and I were lucky enough to attend a taping of the Drew Barrymore show in LA last year, and we hadn't told anybody we were coming. And when Chris saw us, he was like, you guys, you never ask for anything. You're so sweet. Like, come over here. Come see Drew. Let me take your pictures. And yeah, I think it's that trust that we're never like expecting.
Yeah.
We're entitled to her time. Like,
Yeah.
that's not our attitude.
And we have asked in the past
Sure.
for things.
Right.
Yeah.
But
It's
usually
not something we do
it
often.
always ends up being like, of course, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so they came back out, and we gave Chris his gifts, and like we had some cards for the rest of Flower.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember, he made a joke how there was hardly anyone working at Flower, so they'd give them to Flossie and Templeton.
I didn't remember that.
Me neither.
Aw, that's cool.
So cute.
And then Chris asked her if she'd seen the frame photo. Like, we heard him talking
Yeah.
to Drew, and she said, oh my gosh, I can't even handle it right now.
I think I
So
remember
sweet.
that.
And then Nancy was talking to someone else, but Drew and Chris like interrupted her, and they were like calling her over Nanny, and so that we could give her gift, and they were talking about how much she loves ends.
Yep.
She was all excited.
Yeah.
So then they had to go back inside to do the next Q&A, and they were like making sure we were coming in and being so sweet, and we'll see you guys in a few minutes, and we'll wave to you, which is just so cute. So we were in the front row, which good job us.
Yep.
And then we got to watch the Q&A, which I wish I could remember more of. I do remember them talking about they were kind of working on like a horror film or like a thriller.
Would that have been that? I forget what it's called.
Well, it wouldn't have happened, whatever it was.
But wasn't there some horror like situation that they did?
Yeah, it wasn't that. It was
Okay.
something like they were working on that never came to fruition.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a great Q&A from what we remember 17 years ago.
I mean, we were probably just too like
It was
excited.
so
and
surreal.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure we were buzzing.
We were in a daze. And then at the very end of the Q&A, she thanked everybody for coming out. And then she said, and I just need to thank these ladies in the front row. They are the coolest women in the world. Thank you so much. And that was about us.
And of course, we'll share images that correspond with this, including the two with the outtake and the one of the gift we gave her. So do we have any other like memories about that day?
It was just really
magical.
The one thing I think that that is kind of fun is that Joalena, if you want to say that about your encounter with Drew and Chris, like about a week prior, or a little bit more.
So I was working at Burke-Williams at the time, and it all just like ended up being so meant to be because I was having a horrible day. My cash out was off, and it was making it so I had to stay later. And I was in like a really bad mood and just frustrated and everything. And then eventually my cash out ended up being okay. It was just that some invoices weren't closed. And so I walked out of Burke-Williams and I like see Drew walk by me coming off the escalator. And I'm like, oh my God. And she was with a guy and it ended up being Chris Miller. But I, was trying to struggle for my words and I recognized Chris, and so I said hi, and then I said, "Is that Chris?" Which I think then made it more like, Drew was more comfortable. Yeah. And he was like, "Hi," and I said, "Hi, do you know Ashley and Ann?" Because I knew that he had that connection with them a little bit more because he'd only met me like, once before or something. And he was like, "Oh yeah," and I said, "Hi, I'm Joalena," and Drew says, "Hi," and like she, shook my hand, and they were super sweet, and it was a very brief conversation, but she was so nice, and they were just coming from Crunch Gym, which was upstairs, and so she was in like workout clothes and like just looked beautiful and natural and
always
yeah. And so she was just like, "I'm so sorry, but we're we're in a bit of a hurry. There's like somebody literally waiting for us on the street corner, and like if you knew the wrath of this woman." And she's like, "But we'll see you." I said, "Oh, I work at Burke-Williams," and she said, "Oh, maybe we'll see you."
But the great thing was when we saw them at the Arclight shortly after, they totally knew who you were, remembered it, apologized for how brief it was.
Apologized again, and like I think even mentioned the wrath of the woman.
Yeah.
and how sorry she was that she couldn't talk longer. But it was so perfect because it was like, had my cash out not been off, it was like a 20-minute difference.
Yeah.
Wow.
I would have missed them.
Yep.
Amazing.
And I just have to add this. My mom actually reminded me after I met her that I had said like previously, like a couple weeks before that, because Drew had been spotted at my work a couple of times when I wasn't there. And I said, I know I'm going to meet her one day. Like, it's going to happen.
So cool.
And then literally twice within
within
like a couple week period.
Yeah.
So that was really neat that we'd all like had at least one encounter with her prior to this meeting, which elevated it for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But this was the first like major one where we really got some quality time and really got special attention.
Yep. It was really cool.
We've had a lot of other great ones, and like I said, there'll probably be a different episode where we go into some of those other stories. The other story we wanted to focus on for this one was the last time all three of us saw her together, which is crazy because it was so long ago.
Yeah, so we're talking about 7 years ago now.
Darn it, Drew, why do you have to live in New York?
You're probably going to hear us complain about that movie. So November 4th, 2015, Wildflower, her memoir, what do we want to call the
memoir.
So
collection of essays.
Drew's collection of essays that she released that year. There was a book signing at Barnes & Noble at the Grove in Los Angeles, and we had gotten access to attend, which I think just involved buying a copy of the book.
Yeah.
So we had wristbands, we had what we needed, and we had discussed with Tony beforehand.
Yes.
Right?
That's true.
That we would be there.
Yeah.
Probably with Chris Miller as well. And then we kind of, I don't remember if that was the first time we met Tony, if we'd already been in touch
I think
with
that
Tony.
was the first time we met him in person.
Okay,
yeah.
but we'd been in touch with Tony before. So if you haven't listened to the Tony Craigle episode, go back and listen to that.
Definitely go listen to that. You're gonna get
He's
some
awesome.
great stories.
Yeah.
He's so fun.
And just to clear up, he's her previous personal assistant, which Chris also was as well, in case you didn't know that. So basically, we knew we were going to be able to sit down and see her from a distance. We knew that we were going to be able to have her sign our book.
And I just remembered it was the Find It in Everything book signing where we first met Tony.
Oh,
Which
okay,
was
wait.
the year before.
But wait,
those are really
cut that
they
out.
were at the same place, so it's very easy to confuse them.
And did we go to both together?
Yeah. But we didn't really get to have the access we did on this one. So we had just we bought the book and we just made sure we had access to the event. We must have been in touch with someone on her team ahead of time. And our friend Brian was actually able to come to this as well.
That's right. So another OG Drewbie from the Grapevine.
Another one who was probably like 12 when we met him online.
And also who
yes.
we'd met before and who we've talked about before and who's written in before. So
Yeah.
good old Brian. Hi,
Good old Brian. So it was the four of us. And I remember, I believe we all sat in the front row, which was,
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened.
I think they put us there.
Okay.
That's my recollection, is that we were like,
Yes.
I think for
Ushered
both
there.
of I think not for both. I
Not
think
for
Find
both.
It and
Not for
Everything, we were further back.
Yeah, we met
And then
more.
I think for this,
For Wildflower, I think you're right.
we had been put there, but I don't know if we knew that ahead of time. But
I-
either way, I think,
we
but I
didn't.
feel like there were reserved spots for us, and then when we got there, it was
They're
like,
like, no, you're
you're
going to
coming
be
up
over
here.
here.
Yeah.
and we were like,
definitely
okay.
and like a little bit, I shouldn't say embarrassed, but I remember us, I mean, I should say how I felt. I shouldn't speak for
I
you
was like,
guys.
hell yeah.
But I was just like a little bit like walking past everyone else and walking up there. And I always had this feeling, including when we were at the Arclight, like, who are they?
Yeah.
And I feel like I always have that when I see people like sit in VIP.
Well, I mean, when Joe and I went to the taping
Yeah.
last year, we definitely got the vibe that people were just like, what? Who are these people that they get to just go over the corner and talk to Drew? What?
Well, yeah, and not to mention that in the commercial break, she like
Called us
introduced
out.
us.
Yeah.
Introduced us.
That's
too.
true.
So, so for this, Drew, read an excerpt from the book. Do you remember
Oh,
which
yeah.
excerpt she would have read?
I want to say it was the Birds of Paradise one because she talked about Poinsettia Place.
That sounds familiar. I feel like the reason I think that might be right, though, is because somebody had
Somebody
showed
lived
their ID and lived in the house that
her
Drew grew up in.
Yeah, that was incredible.
And which we had also
Wow.
visited the same weekend.
yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, maybe we had
Maybe
just
that
figured out
day.
where it was or something. Anyway, we're kind of going around in circles. So
Yeah,
we're
let's
sitting in
get
the front
focused.
row. We're listening to Drew read this excerpt. I think we'd been kind of like waving at her, right? I mean, we must have at least been we were like 10 feet from her.
Right.
In the front row. And then we did not wait in the line to have our book signed, right?
No, so I wish I had a clear memory of this, but it was either Chris or Tony or Mason told us to like hold off, and we were gonna get our time at the end.
Yep.
So like
Yeah.
let all the normal people go through, and then for some reason we've been blessed with VIP status. Okay, we'll take it.
Yeah, so
Power of three.
So
Yeah.
we watched the encounter with the rest of everyone who was there to meet her. She was incredibly wonderful to everyone.
Of course,
I mean,
everything you'd expect.
Yeah, it was wonderful to watch that. If we had had the encounter at the beginning of that, we probably just would have stayed to watch anyway.
Probably, but because we were like told to stay in the front row, we really got to hear and see everything, which
Yeah.
was cool.
Yep.
And then they kind of ushered everybody out, and it was basically, there may have been a couple other random people around, but then we were able to have private time with her, which was just so cool. It never gets old. I don't want to ever sound jaded about it.
Yeah.
No.
We promised we were pinching ourselves every time this happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Was she pregnant at this time?
Yeah.
No, that
Okay,
was
that was the
finding
first one?
everything.
Oh,
Okay.
shoot.
Yeah.
I keep getting them confused.
I know. I don't really recall many of the things that we talked about, but I do know that Anne and I had brought the famous, again, the profile picture,
Yep.
the postcard. And because we'd never had anything signed out to the Drewsium, we thought that would be kind of a neat thing to do. And so we asked her, and man, that paid off.
So if you look at the header of the Drewsium.com, the actual writing that says the Drewseum is from this. So we use that as kind of our logo.
Drew's handwriting is our logo.
Yep. And I think we might have a picture of the actual postcard up
we
there
do.
too. Yeah.
And she signed it to my friends.
Yep.
Love your girl,
Yep.
Drew, which was so sweet.
Yep. And I've got that framed somewhere.
Yeah. And I think, gosh, I wish I knew off the top of my head, but she wrote something special in each of our books. Like, it wasn't just her signature.
Oh, yeah. I feel like mine says all my love or something like that, but maybe I'm thinking of
writing in cursive voice.
Or no, I might be thinking of Finding It Everything. I bet we have pictures of all of them.
Yeah, we can find them.
Yeah.
She wrote something different in each of them, though, from what I recall. And Drew was kind enough to pose for some photos with us. So we have a great picture of the four of us Drewbies with Drew in the middle.
Yep.
And it was just great. I don't know. It's so hard to explain. It feels so unbelievable, but it also feels very natural when you're with her because she is so cool and warm and welcoming.
Yep.
And obviously we're so familiar with her that being near her feels kind of like normal.
She has this thing about her, and we've probably tried to articulate it a few times, but it kind of feels like you're her friend immediately. And I feel like a couple times she said, like, you guys are my friends. And which
she has said, you're not my fans, you're my friends.
Yeah. And it's not like we've actually tried to be like, so can we come over? Like,
yeah, we're not totally delusional. But we do know that she like appreciates us on a special level, which we're very lucky.
Yeah. And in this picture, I feel like if you didn't know she's like an incredibly famous person, you would think that she's just our friend in this image, which of course we'll share. But there's something about it, just the way she's like, her expression, the way we're all kind of like snuggled together in it. Yeah, it's really special. And
Joe incredible. Just now saying that we're very grateful. I'm like, oh, this is the perfect Thanksgiving time episode because we're so thankful
so we're
for these
recording this
experiences.
the Friday after Thanksgiving. We might have already said that. But yeah, this is something like we feel incredibly lucky that this is our life.
Yeah. And we're due for another one.
Yes, we are.
Let's take a quick minute with Mila.
Okay.
So, Mila, have you ever met Drew?
Nope.
Not yet, right? Would you like to?
I mean, yes, but I wouldn't be like crying for hours if I didn't.
Only with Billie Eilish would you feel that way?
Oh yeah. If I actually got the opportunity to meet Billie Eilish, I'd probably be screaming.
All right.
No offense, Drew, but like, you know,
we all have our
we
personal
all have
people.
our differences, I guess.
But has Drew talked about you? Does she know who you are?
I don't know if she knows exactly who I am, but I remember she talked about me in something.
Yeah, so on her talk show, you sent her a drawing of her eating macaroni.
Yeah, that was a while ago, though.
Oh, you were so young then. And yeah, she really loved it, and she said thank you, Mila, and she put it up on her bulletin board.
Board in her.
So you've had more connection than most people have.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks, Mila.
It's because of you guys, because you guys know Drew. And since I'm your daughter, you know, it all kind of just clicks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You would probably feel like she was your friend if you met her, too. She'd be like, Mila, you're so cool.
I saw the photos. She seems like if I didn't know that she was, like, Drew, then I'd be like, ooh, which new friend is this?
She would love you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in and talking to us minute with Mila style.
Okay.
Should we just make the sound effect for? I just want to briefly say that we were friends, all three of us were friends online for a couple of years before we met in person.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the origin of Ashley and I meeting on the Grapevine, and Joalena was also part of that crew. Joalena, what year do you think you started like posting on the Grapevine?
I want to say like 99 or even possibly 98.
So probably
99 was what we both recall too.
So probably around the same time as us.
Yeah. Oh my
But
god.
we all I have to say, just like with the Grapevine, it's like I felt like these people were my friends, and there's still many Grapevine people who I haven't met who are my friends, like longtime friends.
It's hard to explain the connection that we all shared, and what a just really special group of people
and
was involved there.
I think maybe people who are the age that we were then now may understand this. When you think about like finding your group on like Instagram, or finding like the group of people who love the same things you do, like finding your tribe. I know I've used this before. I think we found our tribe in a way that some people were at that time, but it was more unusual, I think, in the late 90s.
No,
yeah,
to meet 90s. Online sounded weird.
It was so weird. Yeah, it was.
But you know, just think of like if you follow any fan accounts, or if you correspond with people online about things that you love. Like we did that on a very niche level with Drew.
But it's funny, Mila, what do you have to say about that?
Isn't that a bit dangerous? Like you're just like say for instance, and you could be like please don't take this as any offense in any way, but you could be like a 60-year-old man, and Joalena and my mom could be like twin sisters, and they could be like in disguise of like spies, and you're like a criminal, and you could just be like,
ooh, you're taking this far.
You could just like
it's getting dark.
You know what? I think there was something about like we shared pictures of ourselves with each other.
Oh,
we might have even, I guess we wouldn't have had like video conferencing.
No video.
But we definitely shared enough pictures with each other, like that there was no...
Yeah, there was safety
concerns. It didn't feel like a safety concern at all. Although it's like we did, like, on our own will, like, find a message board. Yeah. Go out of our way to, like, find each other.
But you're right. If you were doing this, I would definitely be supervising you. And we had no supervision.
Yeah. But yeah, it was, I mean, at least a couple of years, because... Joalena and Ashley and I didn't meet until, did we say it was 2001?
Yeah, right around there.
And I had a friend who, I was living about an hour outside of LA in the Inland Empire, and I had a friend who, I didn't drive at the time. I would have been 16 or 17? Probably 16. And so that means Joalena was probably...
No, I was 16 when we met.
Okay, so maybe I was 17. Okay. Yeah. I'm thinking it was the summer. So Ashley and I had met before.
It might have been 2002.
Yeah. And Joalena and Ashley had met before, but we had not been all together. So I came out there. Joalena, were you living in LA at that time?
When we all met?
Yeah, you had come back from Alaska.
I had moved from Alaska at that point, I think.
I did just have a recollection. I think we went to the Psychic Eye bookstore. Oh. So we went to lunch, and then we went there. And I don't know why, but we thought that'd be cool.
Did we maybe also go to like that
Star World?
Did we go to Star World?
I don't think so. I don't think we were in that area at all for some reason.
Well, we'll have to pull up pictures.
Hard to remember. I just know the picture of us in the parking lot.
But to be clear, this is 21 years ago.
Yeah. I'm so wrong. I was actually living in Alaska. I was just out here for like 6 months because I didn't want to go back.
So we're going to cram this in here in this episode. You're going to notice there's a sound quality difference. We forgot to ask our dear friend Joalena the titular question of our podcast. Joalena has been the
daisy.
First... Oopsie daisy. So this is an oopsie daisy we're catching before the episode is posted. So when we created the podcast, we realized that how do you Drew? It's both like a greeting, but it's also a question. So Joalena being the first Drewbie that we're having on, we want to ask her, Joalena,
how do you Drew?
How do they Drew?
So tell us about like your Drewbie origin story and then how it manifests itself in your life now.
Okay, so I believe I first read an article that was Movie Line with Drew in it, and I was just like fascinated by her, and she seemed so cool and so inspiring. And I actually remember the pictures. Like, she reminded me of my sister's best friend Charity at the time. And I like idolized Charity, so there was like that little connection.
Do you remember what issue it was?
Yeah, which year?
I think that it was Movie Line 1994.
Wow, so you were so young.
But I don't believe that it was like in 94 when I read the magazine.
Okay.
I think it was more like 98. or
Okay, that
maybe
makes sense.
7 possibly. But then I watched Bad Girls and I loved it and thought she was just so super cool and amazing. And yeah, I kind of like developed just this like interest in her. And I actually remember talking to my mom about her, and my mom telling me she was a little girl from ET and kind of like her story about her young age and, the drug use and all of that. And then I asked my mom to get Little Girl Lost for me so I could read it.
Oh, wow.
And I read it, and I think I was about 12 at that time, because I remember reading parts of it when, she goes into her story and it's like she was like 12.
It was like your age. Yeah.
She
Yeah.
was my age. That's
Which is so wild to
insane.
think about.
Yeah, so crazy. And then, it just kind of kept going. I remembered a funny thing about I went to go live with my dad in Idaho, and I would go with him to like this office, and I think it was Missy's site that I was discovering.
Oh, that's so. Can I just say I used to go with my mom to her office to get on Drew fan sites, and I would like
No
print
way.
them out, like
Yes.
print pages
Oh
out.
my God. Okay, so I think we've talked about this because, yeah, like I was thinking about it, and I remember I don't even think it was my dad's office. I think it was like an office that he was like borrowing or using. And I even feel like we had to like pay for the pages to print
Oh my
them.
gosh.
So I would print them out in black and white,
Yeah,
like just
course.
printer, like black and white. And I had like all of these pages of like her photo shoots and
That's
like
so funny.
my fave photo shoots till this day. It was so crazy. I think that I discovered somewhere in storage that I even still have some of those.
That's awesome.
I know I
I'd
have
have to find them.
had or have mine somewhere too, but I wasn't able to find them. But yeah.
I also have printouts. Like I went in
That's
in high
amazing.
school. I was I don't think I've said this on my origin thing, but like I worked with like the tech department at school, which was my brother. And during one of the periods, and I would print things while he was working on computers.
So we all kind of just piggybacked onto someone's printer and website access.
Yes.
It's great. I love that.
I love it. That's amazing.
It really sets a time.
Joalena, do you remember what photo shoots, other than like the movie line, which ones you really liked from those printouts?
Ooh, I'm pretty sure I definitely had the one from Rolling Stone of her kissing the horse with
Oh,
the
yeah.
umbrella. Like I'm a huge horse fan, as you know.
Yeah.
And I was obsessed with that one.
That makes sense that you were into Bad Girls then.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. Oh my goodness. There was so many. Oh, the mirror, where she's got like the short blonde hair and she has her hand touching the mirror and she's in like the white sort of wife beater, which we don't really call it that anymore.
Yeah.
But to give the description, I mean, that was very 90s.
Yeah.
That one, that still to this day remains one of my most favorite photos.
Oh, I love that. We'll include a picture of it on the episode page then. That's great.
Yeah, I love that. There was a bunch. Oh, can I just add one more thing?
Yeah.
So then like I went and saw Wedding Singer, and Wedding Singer like really catapulted me into
same as me. That's cool.
fandom. Yeah, I remember. That's awesome. Yeah, so I was already a fan, but then like Wedding Singer was just like
It's all over.
it's all yeah. Yeah.
So cute. I was actually going to ask, like, what movie do you remember going to see purposely for her? And that's kind of the answer.
Perfect.
Yep, at this tiny little theater in Salmon, Idaho. Me and my
Wow.
friend
I love
went
that.
to Wedding Singer. Yep.
So how does your Drewbie manifest itself in your adult life?
Oh, wow. Such a question. Well, I mean, it's such a like deep thing that I feel like people who aren't Drewbies just don't understand, because it like transcends into the real life. I mean, you two are my friends of like what, 20 years now?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
like my best friends. And I have, such a connection to so many other people across the world that have been in my lives, and I'm in their lives and everything, and we've sort of followed each other for like 20 years online, but like some of us have met, and a lot of other people we've never met, but they're still like out there, and
They're still our friends.
They're still our
We
friends.
still care about each other and support each other and follow each other.
Absolutely.
Shout out to the Drewbies out there. You know who you
Yeah,
are.
we love you. And then I also just like, I just take so much of like Drew's outlook on life has always inspired me, and like her strength and what's the word I'm looking for?
Perseverance.
Resilience.
Yeah, there you go.
Resilience is just so inspiring. It's just such a connection. Like she'll always be a part of my life, and she's brought so many beautiful people and experiences, and she's shaped the person that I am today for sure. Like just being a fan.
We can relate. We get it.
I love everything you're saying because I completely 100% agree.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course, we know as your friends how you drew, but we had to make sure our listeners knew how Joalena drews.
And honestly, I forgot some of those details, so it's great to get the reminder of that. I love it. It's so funny how we all just kind of come from a similar time frame, similar place, and we like ended up where we're supposed to be to know each other and be in each other's lives. It's awesome.
Totally. It's so synchronistic.
And my story's only like a few months behind, basically. Like when I saw Wedding Singer, it wasn't like it yet. But within like a few months of that, it was it. You know, like
better late than never, Anne.
Exactly.
Imagine the people that are just now getting into Drew, like the youngins.
I know that's a true thing because of the talk show, and it's such a different experience. I can't imagine, like, they have so much to catch up on. That must be kind of fun.
Totally.
Oh my gosh.
Totally.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing that with us, Joe. And I guess now we can walk back over to the park.
Let's go back over to the park and finish the episode. Before we call it quits for this episode, Joalena, is there anywhere you want people to find you online?
Oh, you can find me at heal.withme, which is my sound healing and holistic life coaching.
Definitely go check it out. She's very inspiring, and she offers some tremendous services.
Thanks,
And
Ash.
Mila, do you want anyone to find you or Willow on Instagram?
Yes, Willow. Okay, well, Willow's my cat.
What's her Instagram handle? Beastie Willow.
Beastie Willow. Yeah.
So make sure you follow at heal.withme and at Beastie Willow to keep track of our guests.
We really appreciate you guys tuning in. We really hope that we have a future Drew encounter story to share of all three of us at the same time, because it's just been way too long.
Mm-hmm.
We're manifesting it. We're putting it out there. Drew, come back to LA and we'll come say hi.
Yep. Yep.
As always, we would really appreciate if you could rate, review, and subscribe. We haven't gotten any new ratings on Apple Podcasts in quite a while. If you leave a nice review, we'll read it on the air, and you can feel like you're having your moment of fame.
Red carpet.
And then be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at HowDoYouDrewPod.
And make sure to send listener mail or direct messages on Instagram to howdoyoudrewpod@gmail.com. And this time we're calling out for Drew encounters. We might have before, but we want to hear yours.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what? All of these call outs at the end, I don't feel like y'all are listening.
We're telling you what to do, and you need to listen.
We'll
see you next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
This episode of the How Do You Drew podcast was researched and produced by Ashley and Ann from thedrewseum.com with help from our sponsor, Positive Medium.
Special thanks to Matt Costa for our lovely theme song, Roxy Prima for our adorable logo, and last but not least, Drew Barrymore and all the Drewbies who love her. We do this for you.
Thank you.